I was caught between a malicious sibling pair. If I were to recount my tale to someone, that person would think that I am a callous individual. Yet, if I were to explain why I did it that way, that person would believe that I had done nothing wrong in comparison to what my wife and her brother had done to me. I cut short my business trip and got back to Alabama at my home, one day earlier than planned in order to surprise my pregnant wife. However, when I entered the house, she was nowhere to be found, and I did not say her name out loud because I wanted to keep the surprise a secret from her. When I went upstairs, I heard some voices, but I had an uneasy feeling that something was wrong. When I drew closer, I could hear my wife moaning, but she continued to scream her brother's name, which was pretty disturbing for me. At first, I thought I may have misheard her, but again and again, she screamed her brother's name out loud in the most improper way. I crept inside the room through the bedroom door, but voices emerged from the bathroom. I removed my shoes and began walking on my tips in order to have a better look at what was going on in my bathroom while I was absent. When I got closer to the toilet, I was unsure of what I was about to see with my own eyes, because I had a lot of thoughts racing through my head at the time, such as whether or not my wife was satisfying her physical needs by herself, or whether she was with someone whose name was the same as her brother. However, what I actually saw was something I could never have imagined in a million years. When I finally went inside my bathroom, I saw my wife naked with another man. I could not see the other man's face because it was facing the opposite direction from where I was standing. But after a few moments, I felt like someone pulled a rug out from under my feet because my wife was cheating on me with her brother. They were kissing each other passionately and touching each other in the most inappropriate way. A sane sibling would not have ever even thought of that way. I did not have the courage to storm in and fight for myself, that I was being cheated because I had become numb. But I wanted to know everything about it, such as, since when did she start using me as a shoulder to carry on her sinister relationship with her brother? And I also wanted to beat them for making me fool for all these years. It was becoming increasingly difficult for me to maintain control of the wrath that was building up in my stomach. But in that decisive moment, I resolved that I wouldn't spare them for what they had done to me. Therefore, I reached into my pocket, took out my phone, and began recording them so that I might use the visual at a later time. When I was recording them, they were in the bathtub holding each other, and that satanic brother asked about her, saying that her husband did not doubt her pregnancy. I continued recording them. She was telling him, but in reality, she was disclosing in my video that she was not carrying my child, but rather her brother's child, and that this time she did not want to abort it because she wanted their legacy to continue like they have been doing it for their father. And previously, she did not want to carry her father's child because he was an abusive alcoholic and her brother was gentle. They were also talking about their mother, which was also news to me because that demonic duo has always claimed that they were raised in an orphanage and have no idea anything about their ancestry. However, my wife was questioning him about whether or not he had visited his mother while she was serving time in another state's prison. Then he responded by saying that this month it was her turn to leave, but she reminded him that she was carrying his child, and that child did not permit her to travel to another place. I now have sufficient evidence to harm them, and on top of that, I started to feel dirty just from overhearing and witnessing them engage in all of their activities. I exited the house and sat in my vehicle, perplexed as to where I should go, who I should speak to, and what I should do. I didn't even know how to describe how I was feeling. Was it that I was hurtful, furious, devastated, or emotionally damaged? I asked myself, but when I did not get any answer, I started my engine and drove to my wife's brother's house, because except for his wife, I had no other option but to go and dig in. Or at least if she did not know about all that duo shenanigans, I would inform her. Knocked when I got to his house, but no one answered, so I started beating on the door. His wife eventually opened it, and she was astonished to see me at their place unannounced. I was also curious to see tears in her eyes, which she had when she opened the door. She put herself out of the way and made me feel at home at her place. I went inside, and before I sat down anywhere, I turned to her and said, "Whatever I'm going to show you, just tell me afterward whether you knew about it or not, because if you did know about it, then I would want to know why you did not take any steps or why you did not approach me like I just did." After that, I showed her. At first glance, she threw my phone and started calling me names, saying how dare I show her a video of my wife taking a shower. I walked up to my phone, picked it up, and said in my most angry voice, "That does not make it more difficult for me because I am already going through a lot." She sensed there was something serious, so she took my phone back and started watching the video. And when she eventually got to the point where her husband's face was visible, she covered her mouth with her palm. And I immediately began to empathize with what she was going through, because just a few minutes earlier, I had been in the same situation. When the video was over, she was as numb as I was, and she did not even have the sense to give me back my phone. As a result, I took my phone away from her by myself and told her that based on the way she was reacting, I was getting the impression that she, like me, was unaware of the situation. I asked her how she could not know about all this, because they had been married for 5 years, and I just got married 7 months ago. She responded that she always knew that her husband was having an affair with someone, but that he threatened her, that if she said anything about it, he would snatch her son from her, and she couldn't take any chances because she had seen a tendency in him to do the worst thing. Because her tears were still rolling down her face, I stepped up to her to comfort her. And accidentally, we had gotten so much physically closer to one another that it was impossible for us to take a step back. Because we were both feeling deceived, lonely, and devastated, we opted to have a passionate kiss. From there, one thing led to another, and before we knew it, we were undressed in her bed. After we had finished consummating our emotions with one another, we were lying in bed when she asked me what we should do next. Since I was no longer experiencing numbness, I developed a plan to buy us some time so that we could reach greater depth. My wife was unaware that I would be returning, so I sent her a text message to let her know that my stay would be extended by approximately 2 to 3 days as a result of this. This would cause her brother to stay with her, and I could find anything here at his place that would point me in the direction of the truth. I grabbed my phone and started watching the video once more. After doing so another 3 or 4 times, I was eventually able to determine the name of the facility in which their mother was being held. I sprang out of bed, dressed quickly, and stormed out of the room. She followed me down the stairs and asked me where I was going. I explained everything to her, and she gave me some sound advice, telling me that it is unlikely that I will be able to meet their mother because I do not know their mother's name. After that, she advised that I look through the paperwork that her husband had stored in their home office and in an old garage. After burying my head for hours in their documents, we were finally able to get our hands on a document that revealed that both of our spouses were born and raised in the very same city in which their mother had been imprisoned. I asked her why the hell she never dug into these files, and then she told me that he had been violent to her from the very beginning, and that he had threatened her, saying that he would beat the hell out of her if she informed anybody and that she would never be able to talk again. I started to feel that continuing to browse through these papers would be a waste of time, and that instead, I should visit their school because I learned the name of their school from the paperwork. However, just as I was about to give up, she found the name of their mother written on one of the records. I reached over and retrieved the paper before giving her instructions to wait where she was until I returned. I also informed her that her husband probably wouldn't return because I had just acted smart, but that she should continue acting as though everything was normal in case he did return. I got in my car and traveled to another city, where I eventually arrived at the detention center to register my name for the meeting. Because in previous years, only her children had visited her. At first, they refused to let me meet her. However, after explaining that I am her son-in-law and that my wife is expecting while her son is out of the country, I came to visit her so that I could see whether or not she was in good health. They finally agreed to let me meet her. When she came, there was a smile on her face when she saw me, as if she knew me already, or as if she had seen me before. After clearing my throat to begin speaking, she interrupted me and told me that she was overjoyed to meet me in the flesh and bone at last. I narrowed my brows in confusion as she continued to speak. And then she informed me that she had been pressing her daughter to meet her son-in-law, and by pressuring her thousands of times. My wife had shown her a picture of me to her mother. When I got up 2 days ago, I had no idea that my life was about to be turned completely upside down by an onslaught of terrible news that was about to hit me like a ton of bricks. I started a conversation with her and told her that I came to meet her since her daughter is expecting. After that, she asked about her grandson and her daughter-in-law. After some consideration, I came to the realization that they had already shared all of the information with her, so it was probably pointless for me to pay a visit to her. It stands to reason that she is just as wicked as their husband and children. But I came all the way here, so I thought it was worth a shot. So I told her that I drove from another city, not just to meet her. She interrupted me again and asked when we moved to another city, to which I told her that their kids had been moved to another city for a very long time, and that they also started their lives again there with new identities and names. I have no doubt that she was able to guess what I was going to say. Thus, she rose up and demanded that I stop telling her anything. After that, I pleaded with her to stay so that I might learn the truth. When she had finished telling me her experience, I understood why she could empathize with me, despite the fact that at the time, I did not know why she understood what I was facing. When she started telling me about her husband, she said that he was the devil and that he was very abusive to her. He also threatened her not to tell anybody, like his son. When she gave birth to their children, her position became weaker in front of her husband. So he continued abusing her, and he also started abusing her daughter and made his son get physically involved with her sister. She found out one day that her daughter was pregnant with her father's child, so she helped her daughter get an abortion at home. Because she could not bear to see her daughter in misery, she made the decision that night to get rid of her husband in order to put an end to the situation once and for all. She was planning to carry out her plan one evening while her husband was not at home when she overheard her children discussing how her daughter enjoys spending time with her brother more than she does with her father. Subsequently, she saw their children passionately kissing one another, and his son consoled her sister by touching her all over. When her husband got home after a night of drinking, she took advantage of his vulnerability and stabbed him in the back in order to destroy not just her life, but also the lives of her children by getting them involved in the sinful pleasures he sought. Then she gave her children the instruction to flee because she was going to have to deal with the consequences alone, and this was their opportunity to begin again with a clean slate. In addition to that, she reminded them that they are siblings and that now that their father is no longer there to coerce them, they need to act like it. Then she brought me up and said, "But son, the way you started telling me the news, which I always prayed not to hear, I realized that I failed as a mother. I am a failure as a human being. I could not save my kids from their evil father." Then I informed her that yes, she was correct. Her daughter was pregnant with her son, not with me, and that her son was a very violent husband and father, just like his own father. She shared with me that when her children got married, she was overjoyed that she had at least been brave enough to take that step at the appropriate time since she had been able to guide her children down the right path. During our conversation, I was able to draw the conclusion that they moved to Alabama since their incestuous connection does not violate any laws in that state, and therefore we are powerless to take any legal action against them. Before I could say anything else, she rose up once more and instructed me to tell her son and daughter that she was no longer interested in meeting them. And then she walked away. I stood up as well. And when I was driving back all the way to my city, I finally formulated my grand plan. I did this because I knew that both my wife and his brother were not innocent, and they had no right to harm my life. Now that the time had come, I would make them pay for everything that they had done to both me and that innocent woman. I was correct in my assumption that my wife's brother would not be at his residence the next day when I got back. He did not initially exhibit any enthusiasm for my idea. However, I convinced her that this was her best opportunity to escape her abusive marriage and spare her son from the fury of his father. I set the switchboard in his hall to give him the shock of his life, and I also directed his wife to flee with her son before her husband reached the house. Then I called my wife while I was on my way to my place and informed her that I had unexpectedly arrived in the city. I also told her that I wanted to surprise her, which is why I had not informed her that the length of my journey had been shortened. I did this so that she would be surprised. I did not give them enough time to allow her brother to leave, and when I arrived back home, he was there. I suppressed my anger in order to achieve my revenge, and I spoke to them with a bright smile on my face. After that, I went into the kitchen and slipped a pill into my wife's drink so that she would lose the baby. After my wife's brother had already left, I fabricated a story to get myself out of the house for the evening. Update. When I looked back on my life 3 years ago, the day I found out that my wife had been having an affair with her brother, I was devastated. I did not know that I could be happy again in my life, and I did not know that I could be paired with anybody in my life after that betrayal. After administering the pill to my wife, I stayed the night at my workplace, during which her brother was electrocuted and was unable to assist her or get her to the hospital. The following morning, when I returned home, she was lying on the floor, and I immediately dialed 911. At the hospital, they informed us that we had miscarried the baby. They did not have anything against me, so I filed for divorce. After the divorce settlement, I left the city and my previous life. While I was trying to forget my past like a bad dream, I bumped into that innocent woman and her son, as she was also going through the same thing. We helped each other move forward in life, and in that journey, we became partners, and now she is pregnant with my child.